go back home to your genetic report, or if you happen to have it here, I wanted to make sure people know what to focus in on, and as you put the communities together, how to make sure you're all together in the same place. So this is just very, very briefly, Genetics 101 in terms of reading your genetic test report. So we write this in a very cryptic way, and I apologize, but we do. One of the ways we write is at the DNA level, and that's this area over here. And so we write C dot, and I will say we put a dot in there, and that for us represents the DNA level. And for those of you who are molecular biologists, it's the cDNA, so it's the way that we read out the transcript. And then on the, this is at the nucleotide or at the DNA level at position 799, that's the address. And then the G is the normal sequence that we usually see, but it's now substituted for a C. Okay. There is also, just to confuse you, we have a parallel universe at the protein level. And again, we have a specific address. In this case, it's the amino acid. So the amino acid is the building block that makes eventually that KIF1A protein. That address that we're talking about is amino acid. So this is P dot, means at the protein level. The address here is 267. That's the street address. And in this case, the first amino acid is a glutamic acid, which is substituted for glutamine. So this is the normal sequence here, and then the other one that's substituted is here. It doesn't really matter so much that you know all of these secret codes, but the 267, I'd suggest that as the communities, as you get together, you want to find communities that's at the P dot level. So you want to find anyone, and I'm not trying to out anyone, but anyone who's at a 267, you guys all want to congregate over here. Anyone who's at, I don't know what other numbers, 299, you want to congregate over here, and you want to compare your signs, your symptoms, your stories to each other in terms of that way. As you do that, some of you are going to feel alone and lonely right now, because there are some of you that, as far as we know, are unique. Not that you're going to be that way forever, but right now you are unique. And so what we're doing is trying to figure out, I call it lumping and splitting. How are we going to lump some groups together so that you're not alone, and how many we have in terms of similarities between that, and then splitting because some of you really are different. It feels, and you sort of talk with each other and you can feel those differences. The last thing I'll say is that with some of you, your genetic reports say de novo. De novo means that it's new. It started brand new with your child. That means it was not inherited from either one of the parents, and that means you can check your guilt at the door. So what I mean by that is that there was nothing that you or your spouse or your ex-spouse or anyone else did that caused this, right? These things just happened. I can tell you I've done my own experiment on my own two sons. Each of them have about 125 to 150 new genetic changes that neither I nor their father gave to them. So just because we're humans, these things happen. There is absolutely nothing you did that could have prevented this, nothing you did that caused this. So like I said, check your guilt at the door. For almost everyone, it is the case that they are de novo. I say almost because there are a few of you here that actually don't have one genetic change. You have two genetic changes. So within the community, we do know there are some people in the group where it took two to tango rather than just one. So for those individuals where it took two to tango, we are seeing that we got one from the mother, one from the father, and the combination of those two is what's caused the problems. And for the most part, that explains what we're seeing within the community. Over time, I may change my story as we have more information, but for now, that's predominantly what we see. There are a few of you where the person with KIF1A was tested, but the mother and the father have not yet been tested, and so we don't know for sure it's de novo or new. In part, the reason why we're getting some of your blood samples is to determine whether it's new. And so as Leah said yesterday, that's part of what we're trying to put together. Okay, so.
Hold on, sorry,
you can use Susanna's as an example, certainly, if you want.
I'm just pulling it up, sorry, it's taking a second.
Email that one too.
Okay, so whether it's, anyone's particular change doesn't really matter so much. This is how to read this though in terms of an orientation. And if we need to post something online so families can go back and look at it again, that's fine. But anyway, that's just very quick and dirty way of, not quick and dirty, but a way to be able to orient you to that goblin book that we have in your genetic test report.
There it is. That's what it looks like.
Okay, so Anyway, so here's maybe we have to point to it.
Right here.
Okay, so in terms of just looking at this specifically, so it's the KIF1A gene, here's the C dot that I told you about, here's the P dot that I told you about, and that's the way you can look it up. Okay.